Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are live with episode 3 of Champ Chat. I'd like to welcome everybody to the show, those of you who are watching live, and those of you who are watching on the archive later on today or later on in the week. This week, we have with us another winner of a recent ROC, which I'll start referring to as Rocks, as Howard keeps telling me to do. We have Joshua Earnest joining us.
Hi there, also known as Goku on HC Realms.
So if you see posts by, it's just Goku, right?
Gokou.
Just Goku. If you see Goku posts on HC Realms, this is the man Josh Earnest who's making those posts. So, Joshua, I want to start as we start with all of our other champs. Let's give everybody a history of your Heroclix life.
Sure. I started way back when the game first began. I played for several years. I was probably week 1 or week 2, and then I played up until around Mutant Mayhem, somewhere a little after that. Then I started going to college and got a little bit busy, so I took a very long hiatus, and I picked the game back up around Guardians of the Galaxy, and I've been playing again since then.
That's Guardians of the Galaxy, not Galactic Guardians?
I'm sorry, you're right. Galactic Guardians.
Yeah.
Too many sets.
Yeah, I understand that, and they're starting to get that overlap. You know, there's 2 Spider-Man sets now, so. Excellent. Now, is the Rock your main source of major tournaments, or have you been to American Nationals or the World tournaments down there?
I have not. The first event that I went to that was a big one was way back in January last year. It was the first Tulsa Super Qualifier. So that was my first experience with competitive meta. It was a good time. I came in 3rd at that one, so it got my feet wet, and I've been doing it ever since.
Awesome. Now, I guess you said in last January would have been your introduction into the competitive meta.
Mm-hmm.
Coming from the not so competitive meta, what was it like to come in that manner? You know, like was it a big shock to the system to see that this is another way that the game's being played?
Well, it's all just playing clicks. I tend to build a team that works anyway. I mean, you can build less or more competitive depending on what you're expecting for the tournament, but I typically try and build synergies into a team regardless of how it is. So, I mean, the first team I played against was a real shock because it was way out of left field. It was I can't remember the guy's name. It was Death's Head and Robots. So it wasn't what I was expecting. It was a graceful entry into the Super Qualifier world, and it was a lot of fun. And I mean, it's just playing clicks. That's what you got to remember. Some people get nervous. It's a game to have fun. If you're not having fun, then you're missing a big part of the game.
Yeah, that's one of the things I did notice myself when I went to Canadian Nationals. It was my first major tournament. I've understood how competitive gaming works, being from Magic the Gathering or Versus system myself. But when I got there, it was amazing to see that some people were some were shocked and some were less shocked than, you know, when they saw what they were playing against. They had no idea. Some teams come out of left field. Some teams you've seen on the internet, and some people thought were original ideas that everybody was playing. So it's neat to see all the different reactions to both new and experienced players.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to get into next is let's dive right into your recent ROC win, or the Rock win. This one was in Oak Ridge, Texas?
Yeah, it's right outside of Austin.
Okay. Now I have your team here. It was Engineer played at 90 points. Captain Marvel Prime. Harley Quinn played at 50 points. Weasel, Bizarro, and the Bat Cycle on autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
Your map choices were the Pacific Ocean, the Hall of Doom Slaughter Swamp, and the Arctic Outpost. Mm-hmm. So, from conception to practice to the tournament, like, how did you come together with that particular team?
I really like Engineer. I was trying to build a team around Engineer. I think she's going to have more trouble in tactics when you start seeing green batteries and free actions become a problem. But in no tactics, she really shines. And I was tired of Super Skrull winning everything. He shines for the same reasons. Adaptability is key. So I wanted a team that wasn't using Super Skrull that still gave me some options and gave him a hard game of it. And so the way I got to Engineer is she's so adaptable, and my answer to Super Skrull was the defend from Captain Marvel Prime. I picked stealth. I put smoke cloud from the bat cycle adjacent to pretty much everybody, and that way, if Super Skrull wants to hit me, he's got about as hard of a roll as he's ever going to have against anybody. And so that was my idea for the team, that it would be a competitive matchup against pretty much everybody, and because there's no team that's insta-win against Super Skrull. If he's rolling, he's going to roll you. But this team, I thought, gave me a good matchup against him.
Yep. Now, one of the things that I see myself as a player, what I see Engineer lacks, as Super Skrull lacks, is the ability to choose a defense power. So you overcame that by, of course, choosing stealth and creating the hindering terrain yourself with the bat cycle, which does it for free, if I remember correctly, just by moving, right?
Moving, so I carry up Engineer and I carry up Captain Marvel Prime. On top of that, once you factor in that Engineer's got a 19 defense just from Captain Marvel Prime, it makes her a lot tougher not to crack.
Yeah, excellent. Now, I want to go into, because this is something I think I've missed with previous champions, and this is something very unique to The Rock. You get the 3 map choices, so when you're choosing your maps, what things were you considering when you chose the 3 that you chose?
Well, Pacific Ocean is pretty much a standby. If you don't have Pacific Ocean and you run into somebody who's a barrier-heavy team, that's a misplay on your part, because really Pacific Ocean can completely neuter their strategy and really put them off their game. After that, there's a lot of different factors. I wanted stuff that was open because I was mostly a ranged heavy team, and I wanted stuff where it would be tough for my opponent to get to me, with my stealth, even if I don't have smoke cloud up that turn, because the bat cycle's got to rest sometimes. So most of my games, I like to Slaughter Swamp. I've actually got it set up over here. That was the one that I like to play on the majority of the time.
It's funny because that map beat me at Canadian Nationals.
It's a lot like it's almost like a new garden.
Yeah.
From Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, so let's go through your experience in the tournament. First, how many people showed up for this Super Qualifier?
For this one, there was, I want to say, 36. 36.
So quite a few players.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go from round 1 down to the finals. Your opponents, particular tough matchups, and whatever else.
There was a lot of Kyle Rayner. That's Ragnarok's stomping ground down there. So they've been playing Kyle Rayner a lot. I ran into 3 of them, and 2 out of 3 times it did not go my way. The first one that I played was actually my first loss in Swiss. My team is high defense and stealth. He can switch to the spotlight, and he had him paired up with Harley Quinn, and then his own perplex, so he can perplex up to a 13 attack, and he's got a prob on it, and he just hit my defense all game long. I mean, I can get up to a 21, and then the only target I left him was the bat cycle, and he just hit it. I mean, that's what my team does.
Yeah.
If you can hit it, it goes down.
So now I have to say, Kyle Rayner is showing up on a lot. Do you think the fact that he was just handed to people for participating in War of Light has a major factor in that?
Accessibility is definitely a factor, but I mean, if you're a competitive player, you'll put the work in to get a figure you think can help you win. I think even Super Skrull, who is much harder to come by, you see almost as many just because he is so good.
Yep, absolutely. So, let's keep going. So that was the first round. First round, you ran into Kyle Rayner.
That was my second game.
Second game, okay.
That was my first loss. I actually went 3-2. My 4th game was my next loss, and that was against another Kyle Rayner, and I should have won that one. I made a couple misplays on that. I poisoned him right to his Godhood clicks when I didn't have to, and so that was my downfall there. I lost going to time on that one. I might have been able to pull it out, but we ran out of time.
Yeah.
Moral of that story, that guy went 3-2, the same as me, but because all of his games were going to time, he did not qualify for the top 16. One of the guys who beat me didn't make it into the top 16 because none of his games were high-point games. That game ended like 60-82. It was not, a runaway in either direction.
And I think that begs one of those points that a lot of people do bring up. Sometimes you run into an opponent who's a lot slower with regards to the way they play, and I'm not going to call them like intentional snow players right out, because sometimes guys really do think out their turns really in depth. But if you're not ready to think quickly, it could cost you a lot in the points realm, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Most of my games don't go to time. I'm the kind of player where if I win a game, it's typically gonna be a clean sweep on my part.
Yeah, I'm about the same. Like in my local tournaments as well. If my game's always the first one done, whether I won or lost.
Yeah.
Now that's not to say I usually play Alpha Strikes or anything like that. I mean that's not even close to my style.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a plan going in, and very few things kind of
Make
get
you.
away from the plan. You know.
Mhm.
So like I can also react. I find, and I might be tooting my own horn on that one, but I find I'm able to react on the fly really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be also because I came from the older game where the maps have shrunk since Infinity Challenge.
Yeah. No longer 3x3, 2x3 instead.
Exactly. So they're the same length, but there's less width, and some ranges just kind of get around that.
Mm-hmm.
So you went 3-2 in the Swiss rounds,
Mm-hmm.
but you had enough points to get you into the 16.
Yes,
So
sir.
let's talk about the 16. They actually have the board up here on the pictures. They went really in depth on the pictures on HC Realms this time around.
Mm-hmm.
So Josh, your first round was against Matt. How did that go? Well, obviously you won. I mean, but
Well enough.
how did it go in the game? What was his team and your strategy going in?
It went a lot worse than I thought it was going to, because he was running High Father along with the Red Lantern Kyle. No, not Kyle. What's his name? Hal Jordan, the one with the Flurry Precision Strike 12 attack.
Guy Gardner.
Guy Gardner, that's him. Red Lantern Guy Gardner, and he had that paired up with a Prime, the same guy that I was, Captain Marvel Prime.
Yeah.
So that's his team, and already he's pacting my engineer, which I can get pretty much all the utility out of engineer that I need through the pact. I mean, she's still got access to TK, Perplex, Carry, all the good stuff that I need from engineer is still there, and that takes up a lot of the strategy of a High Father player. But things, I set up my shot. He comes. We're actually playing on Brazil. He comes down to the little hole in the middle of the map.
Yep.
Set up my shot. I go to break the pact, shooting on High Father, who's a 19 because of Captain Marvel Prime. And I'm up to a 13 attack with the prob, and I thought I fixed that from Weasel, and I missed both attacks. I missed both sixes. And then his rebuttal is to walk his Flurry Death Machine right up the elevation, and he takes out Captain Marvel in one turn. So things did not go as well as I was thinking. I thought that my day was over there in my first match in the top 16. But because I had set up Captain Marvel as Harley's Puddin', she got mad, and she turned around and whacked High Father a good one. And so because of that, I was able to open up Engineer and able to turn the match around. I got pretty fortunate with my rolls from that point on and was able to clean up.
Now, that is one of those things that a lot of people are going to get caught off guard with that Harley Quinn character. I'm putting this public service announcement out right now.
Mm-hmm.
Do not forget about Harley Quinn if you kill the Puddin', because she becomes a raging death machine. I have killed so many characters by just people forgetting that Harley Quinn is now +1 all her stats when the Puddin' dies.
Oh, yeah.
Like, sure, she loses her abilities of support, perplex, and probability control. They're gone. But, oh my god, at 50 points, with +1 to all of her stats, she's still able to do a lot of damage.
Absolutely. With putting poison on top of it. Jittery decided to be a good figure right there. I mean, there's no way she's going to be cycling out of the meta that I can see before she retires.
No, not a chance. And this is one of those rare occasions. He specifically said he wanted to either win with, or lose against Harley Quinns all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And he seems to have got his wish.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so second round in the top 16, I have you up against Sean. Sean's team, Sean McDonald, was playing High Father, Magic, Harley Quinn as well, and he had a Tachyon on the sideline. I didn't list his map, so I'll let you take us through this matchup and how that went. That's another 2 High Fathers in a row now. Are you starting to hate the character?
No, I mean, against that team, I don't mind Highfather at all. Like I said, he locks down an engineer as an attacker, but that's not all that she does. She's so adaptable, she can get me pretty much everything I need.
Yeah.
And as was the theme for the first couple matches, I almost goofed it up and lost it just because of misplay. I chose my powers for engineer after setting out for an attack, and for whatever reason, TK wasn't one of them, and I needed it to be. And so because of that, he was able to go hide in a corner, and we almost went to time. In the last 15, 20 minutes, I was finally able to break down some walls and able to shoot at his team and break the pact. And it was a very competitive game. His strategy, he told me, for most people, was to carry up and have Harley Quinn do her thing, because he played her at 65. She's got outwit, she's got great defensive power, she's got that penetrating poison, and magic is no slouch either. And when you've got +1 from Highfather and their main attacker isn't doing much, it can be a really bad day for the opponent. But against my team, I've got poisoners in my own right. I've got the Bat Cycle, which ignores characters for movement. I've got Sidestep on Engineer. He just didn't have a way to lock me down. There was no way he could counter anything, even with Harley's outwit she starts with, to where he could lock me down, and so he was on the defensive for pretty much the whole match.
Right. Now, that's one of those things that I find is some players do revert to a full defense, and I've heard this happen before where somebody looks at another team and says, I can't beat this team, I'm going to actually take it to roll-off. Now, that's not to say that I find that's actually kind of admitting defeat beforehand. But at the same time, it's it's one of those things you can't really turn to somebody and say, well, you're playing it wrong. It's not against the rules. It's as long as they're making actions, it doesn't take them 8 minutes to get to turn 2, right?
Correct. I don't know exactly how the game went, but I do know that his top 16 win was via roll-off.
Oof. Ouch. And I think I watch, but the fact that I watch a lot of mixed martial arts kind of puts me in this way where the president of UFC, with Dana White, said, don't leave it to the judges because they can mess it up. Let a win be a decisive win.
I would rather go down swinging than win something like that. Personally, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, and you know what though? At the same time, people have won because they've won roll-offs.
You can't fault it. It's a legitimate strategy. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I can't say that you're a bad player because you won this way.
Yeah.
You won.
Yep, absolutely. You noticed your team's weakness and you defended yourself the best you could. Now, the next player you were up against was Elliot.
Mm-hmm.
Elliot Henson Jr. Oh, it's Kyle Rayner again.
Yes, it is.
Kyle Rayner, Abensur, and Doctor. Now, Doctor, for those of you unfamiliar, I think I might have mentioned him in my Silver Bullets episode. He's one of those guys, you have a specific strategy that you're trying to stop with this guy. And in the sense of Doctor, he basically shuts down Black Talon and Brother Voodoo in this format. Both Brother Voodoo does free action mind control, and then you have Black Talon does friendly mind control. So those are two things that Doctor stops outright. As well as there's little tweaks, like there's little things about it, like if somebody takes attempts some mind control after a running shot, well, they can't do that because now they're taking it as a free action.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it doesn't look like this has any kind of effect on your team. So, again, spoiler alert, you won this match. Was this as tough as the first 2 rounds or tougher?
It was a very tough game. Elliot has actually won a super qualifier at Fat Ogre there in Texas. He's a great player. He's a great guy. I can't say enough nice things about all of those guys for Team Ragnarok. But and he got map choice. He plays on ranks. He's got the wall on Abensur, and it is challenging to say the least to get an attack in on ranks when you've got a wall construct. I had to do all kinds of shenanigans, left, right, center, blowing up walls. If I didn't have 3 people who could attack and take down walls, then I don't know that I would have ever landed a hit. But between Bizarro, an engineer, and Captain Marvel, I was able to land some hits in on his support. And by the time you take out the support, I got very fortunate. I wound up with no losses at that point. Engineer was a little wounded, but she can do all I need her to do at that point. And I was able to walk up, poison him, passed his godhood clicks with Harley Quinn, and after that, the game was pretty much over.
Excellent. So, now, ranks I'm not 100% familiar with. I've seen it come up a couple times. Which one is ranks again? That's the...
It's dark blue and brown. It's got walls everywhere. There's like this central chamber with 2 entrances on each side, and it's very, very wall heavy, blocking blocking terrain, squares of blocking terrain.
Oh.
It's a recent map. It came out. I'm pretty sure it's one of the War of the Light maps. It's RANX. It's a map that you need to be prepared for because it's a shooter's nightmare for sure. Part of the reason it works so well with Kyle is he doesn't care about all those walls. Once he gets to Godhood, he can zip in, pop you, zip out anywhere he needs to go.
Yep. Okay. I actually just pulled the map up now, and this would have been the month 6 War of Light map. So I believe.
Is that the mountain?
No. I believe the mountain's the other side of it. Ryu is on the other side of this one, I believe.
The mountain ranks. I didn't know it was month 6. I thought it was bigger than that.
Either that, or I was playing it on or somebody was playing the wrong map against me in month 6, which could very well have happened too. Ranks, Heroclix map. The wonders of having Google and all this technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what we got here. Nope, I got an eBay listing, but no.
No picture.
Well, it's got the pictures. It's got no details as to when it came out. Because I recognize the map for sure because I remember having a Katmatui get blasted away on one of those elevated terrain markers. Oh no, this isn't month 6. No, I'm wrong.
I think it was month 6.
It might have been. It might not have been. I'm going to assume it was, and then everybody can correct me in the comments below. But so anyway, so ranks wasn't such a problem for Kyle Rayner. It was a little bit of a nightmare for you with those wall tokens.
Mm-hmm.
But you did manage to eke it through, which is, of course, where it takes us to the finals. Now, one thing I want to point out before I mention your opponent's team, there's a lot of swarm teams occurring, a lot of large number teams occurring in this format. Now, part of that, your team had 2, 4, 5, 2,
6 figures.
6 figures. So you're speaking to my heart. I love a large team. And there's not even bystanders on it. Now, as part of this, do you feel like part of this is the return of the pit crew when you take away the tactics? You know, because you got to have figures that kind of act to make other figures better? Or is it just how it works in the format? There's not really enough energy explosion to make you scared? Or
I don't really know why other people do it. I just love adaptability. I need a team that can handle different situations. I needed a team. When Tellus came out, I loved Tellus because he made everybody on my team harmonious. I actually won a super qualifier with Tellus, and it was a goofy team. It had enhancement. It had people I could shoot through. It had multiple different shooters. That's the kind of team that I like. A team that has the adaptability to overcome whatever I sit across the map with. If you've got everything in one character, and that one character has a hard counter, even if it's not a commonly played figure, you run into that and you're just in trouble. If you've got that many figures, it's like diversifying stocks. You know, you've got if one character over here takes a hit, somebody brings a counter for that character, you've got a backup plan over here.
Right. And now, your opponent, the reason I wanted to bring this up is your opponent wasn't short on characters either. He also had 6 figures on his team, his being Captain Marvel, the Prime that you're playing, who's showing up a lot in this format as well.
He loves the swarm team because your entire swarm then becomes a nightmare to hit.
Yep. He has Harley Quinn played at 50. Now this one's a little different. The Spider-Bot Mark II, that's a 10.1. I believe that's the one with plasticity, correct?
Yes, it is.
And then Dexstar, Despotellis, and Gates. Well, we know what Gates is there for.
He's got a billion people. I use the Bat Cycle. He used Gates.
Yeah, exactly. So, was this as much of a bloodbath as I think it sounds like it was?
Yes. He got map roll. He goes to the crime alley, the one that's got the theaters. So he phases up halfway across the map into the theater. So he's got 2 walls in between him and me. I go for a shot. I don't hit it because it's on a 20 through hindering. I figured I might as well try. And at that point, I think his best option, seeing my team and me knowing how it works, I think he should have tried to pick me apart a little bit at that point. Instead, he phases up into my face, which is a great strategy with that team because he's got so many poisons. He's got the plasticity from the spider bot. If you have to kill it, then it's a 19. But against my team, I've got enough poison in my own right that it was able to just give him a really, really hard time. It went very, very poorly after that for him because I just he phased up right on top of Engineer. He put a bunch of different people there. The way that it worked out with Bizarro, my opening salvo, after I missed the range attack, he phases up on me. I take out the spider bot who is in the middle of his swarm with poison, and I hit one other person with Engineer. Harley and Bizarro work out a double sidestep combo, so I get her to where the spider bot was standing, and there's very little damage reducers on his team. Yeah. So I hit 2 people with poison initially with Engineer, and then I hit another 4 or 5 people with poison from Harley after that. And Harley is next to Captain Marvel, so she's sitting on combat reflexes with a 19 up to a 21, yeah. and I'm able to just dance around and avoid most of his poison with my combination of sidesteps, ignoring characters, and able to dictate the pace of the match at that point.
Right. Okay, yeah, and both, like I said, or like you were saying, both teams seem to really focus on getting poison out. But of course, you take one of his biggest poisoners, being Despotellus, and because of Engineer, turn it into regular poison.
Yep.
So as long as you're packing some kind of toughness, or in a lot of Bizarro's clicks impervious, he's going to see a problem there.
Absolutely. Even still, I knew Despotellus had to die. He was he's just being able to follow along would have messed with my formation. So he was my target after that initial poison. I was able to I pushed Captain Marvel to do it, and that's another thing that makes him so awesome is the second click is just as good as the first. And I was able to push him, take out Despotellus, and at that point it was not a good day for him.
Mm-hmm. And of course, you got yourself a big old win.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what some of our fans won't know is that this, you did mention it briefly in the episode, this isn't your first ROC win. Mm-hmm. Not your first Rock win at all. You also kind of caught mine and Amber's attention last year, later in the year, in the Midwest, with a bunch of cardboard. How would you tell everybody about that? Because that just, it caught us completely off guard that somebody was able to do that.
It was the age of entities. Everybody's picturing the big cannon with entities out the wazoo, resources left and right. He's going to come in and he's going to murder anybody who he shoots at. And I play Pogs. I play Scotty. I play 3 warbots of the 2 different types. I have the one that does the pulse wave. I have the one that gets the stat bonuses. And it's actually even a theme team. I run 2 Blind Owls, I run 2 Weasels, and I run Bill, Agent of AIM. So it's a named theme team with Agency of X. It was a fun team. I love playing it, and I think people love playing against it because no matter what happened, things died. I mean, there wasn't a game where I got a clean sweep because it's a POG team. It's there to be able to take any hit you can throw at me, no matter how strong. And it's not going to insta-kill anything because it's Pogs. You take one off the stack and you move on from there.
Yep. And, I got to say, with the new Horde rules, too, the fact that, you lose a Pog, there's still a stack of guys that do the same thing. It's kind of like having a multi-click figure with the same stats across the whole map. And I was really impressed that you did that and piloted, nonetheless, to a big old win in a Super Qualifier. So I want to say a late congratulations on that one.
Thank you. It was a fun team to play.
And your other win I'm not as familiar with because it didn't quite, I guess I wasn't as crazy a team. What was your other win with?
It was in Omaha in March. It was before Tellus got his nerf. It was Bat Cycle, which I like Bat Cycle. It's a great way to position a swarm team. It ran Astral Doctor Strange. It ran the Tony Stark from the movie set, the one that's got enhancement, Avengers Initiative, Outwit, stuff like that.
Yep.
It ran Cerise. That was pretty much the bulk of the team, and it ran Tellus. So my strategy with that team was Astrals are broken, was the point of it. Basically, with Tellus, I can have my team safely hiding behind walls anywhere I need them to hide, and so long as I've got an Astral within 4 and I've got my shooters within 4 of Tellus, then I can just pick an opposing team apart. And it didn't matter about high defenses. Your defense can be sky high. I can wildcard PD on Tellus with his Legion of Superheroes team ability, and with 2 PDs from Cerise and him, it's just, I mean, I'm hitting it on a -2. You know what? Bizarro was also on that team, so if I'm on a range combat expert click, I can get up to a 13. I can hit pretty much any defense. I can hit hard for multiple characters. It was another very fun team to play, and that's what I like, a team that requires thought on my side to pull off well. In fact, when I built the team, I texted one of my buddies here, and I'm like, I've got this team idea. I just don't know if I can pull it off because there's so many wheels within wheels. If you mess up in positioning, it's a very punishing team to play.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to just say I think it's your fault that he got nerfed.
That's a possibility. It's a possibility.
It's one of those things I like to make a joke. Like somebody wins with something they got watch list. It's like, this is your fault.
Patrick's of that opinion. He's plays something and it'll usually see a watch list soon enough.
Yeah. You know what? I'm not gonna lie. In the early game, prior to the rule of 3, I feel like I made a team that might have caused the rule of 3 at one point.
Yeah.
Like 8 guys with perplex.
Mm.
So, you know, when you can have a character who usually does 2 damage, dealing 7 now with a 12 attack. That's what I tell all my friends anyway. I'm the reason for the rule of 3. So, at this point, I want to move on to some of our popular questions, the frequently asked questions from our fans. And, you know, feel free to say no comment if you don't want to answer it. But out of this, let's start with the beginning here. Out of this tournament, who was your toughest opponent?
Oh, let's see. Single opponent, probably Tim. I mean, I got very fortunate. If I hadn't been so fortunate, he definitely would have gone to a victory. I mean, he almost took out Engineer. If he had done that, then it would have been a very difficult game. He played his Kyle team very, very well, and even though it was the only Kyle that I beat, it was a very competitive game.
Yeah. So map choice, was it we talked about your map choices, but when you saw your opponent's team, you said Barrier is the first one that got the Pacific Rim or Pacific Ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about my favorite movies now. And then you had your main choice was the Slaughter Swamp.
Mm-hmm.
You also had your third map. Now, the third map, was there a specific matchup that you were going to be using that on? Or I don't quite give me a second. I'll remember what the map was.
No worries. It's one of the Rock Prize maps. It was the Arctic Base.
Arctic Outpost, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the reason I like that map, I liked it against a team that had a better range than me. And I actually played it against one of the Kyle teams because it's got that outpost right in the middle of the map. I can advance fairly far, and it's still difficult for him to get a shot off on me because of all of the walls in between us.
Right. Okay. Are you planning on traveling to more of the major rock events this year?
Oh yeah, for sure. There's a few big ones coming up. There's Dallas, Texas is holding a super qualifier coming up in March, I believe it is. I want to say the middle of March. There's talk of another tournament, their first one potentially happening in Kansas City. There's one coming up in Tulsa. There's both a regional and a super qualifier coming up for Tulsa later on in the year. And Wizards Asylum, a local shop here in Wichita, they just held their first qualifier. It wasn't quite a super qualifier, although we had 26 people. I was very happy with our attendance. Due to the success of that event, we're potentially going to be getting a super qualifier here June, July, somewhere in that area. So it looks like there's going to be a lot of rock happening in the middle of the country here.
Yep. And it's good to hear that this tournament or the rock itself is occurring so often now. WizKid's support is great. It's great on a local level, and it's great on the national worlds level. We need that in between, and I find the rock really fills in that space that's in between, especially for players like yourself or like myself who do like a higher level of competition. You know, there's nothing wrong with playing hard, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
and having a place to do so is always good.
And
Uh,
just, 3 events a year. It's not Origins, Nationals, and Worlds.
yeah.
And I would never, before The Rock, I would have never even considered going to one of those tournaments. I've always been, well, I'm tooting my own horn a little bit here, but I'm typically considered the big fish in the little pond. I'm one of the favorites to win any tournament that I go to. But I don't know what that means on a national scale. I'm not going to spend hundreds of dollars on a trip, on airfare and hotel and food and all that to find out that I'm not anywhere near as good as I thought I was. So before The Rock, I never would have even gone to anything like that.
Yeah, and it's one of those things for me as well. When I saw Patrick's display last year, and I'm sure we all saw his name all over all the Rock tournaments that he went to, and then he went and won Worlds, and it begs that question. It's like the Rock teams are competitive in these Rock tournaments,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the guys that's been successful in a lot of those tournaments was successful on the world level.
Mm-hmm.
So we now get our parity where players who play in these regularly and do well regularly do factor into the national world scale, and it's just a matter of getting out to those tournaments.
I know that he credits The Rock. I know that he very much values the experience that he's got with teams from that. The guy's knowledge of figures is incredible. I played him at Dragon Con, which he also won, so he obviously beat me, and he knew my figures better than I did. I mean, he just, if it's a commonly played figure, he's not going to mess up a ruling on it. He can instantly react to anything that you do, and it's that experience. I know the team at Majestics, they all practice hardcore all the time, and it pays off. The Rocks is a great way to get that practice and put a practical application to it. Be able to take that, and hone the fine edge of your blade a little bit further through another source there.
Absolutely. Now that we're on the topic of practice, it's one of my personal favorite things to talk about on this show. What are your practice habits? A lot of players, some players kind of built the team the night before and happen to be successful. Do you have a set of practice habits that you have a group that you practice with on a regular basis, or what do you do for practice?
A lot of our practice happens online. We'll just be chatting. Everybody's making a team nowadays. I have to represent. Wichita now considers ourselves to be the agents of ICT. We've got, it's our local play group now. We call ourselves the agents of ICT, which is the airport code for Wichita. So I talk with them a lot before anything, typically goes to a table. We'll throw out team ideas there. We'll shoot back and forth. We definitely play test against each other. If someone's thinking that they need help against a certain matchup, someone will bring that, and we'll see how it goes when you actually start throwing dice. And a lot of the times I like to play test against myself. I'll set up my table, I'll have both teams laid out, and I'll see how I can do against myself. Hopefully my opponent won't be as good as me, but if they are, then it's nice to have that experience as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are all really good, important things to get, is because if you're, especially in like your team for a lot of players probably came out of right field, but you knew what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the most important things going into a game, is because you know what's going on. You know how every other team is for the most part going to work, especially with figurehead figures like Kyle Rayner or Super Skrull, where they're taking more than 50% of the team. You know how to react to those characters and how to deal with what comes with them, because there's a smaller selection of figures that come with it. I believe that's all we got for this week with regards to questions for you. Are there any upcoming events you want to plug, your local store or anything like that? Now's your time.
Well, last night we had our qualifier I mentioned. We've got, in the future, we're going to have a super qualifier. Really, that's the big stuff coming up. I was very fortunate last night. I came in first place in that one. We had awesome prize support. If we have a super qualifier, you can count on the prize support, because for a qualifier, we had an entity chase for our first place. And that's better than you can get for most of the current con exclusives in a Rock Super Qualifier kit. So if you hear in the future about a Wizards Asylum tournament here in Wichita, you can count on it being a lot of fun. The third Super Qualifier in Tulsa that we were just at, people were posting on that one. It's a breath of fresh air. It was won by Jay Strader, a fellow Wichita. but it wasn't what people were expecting. It wasn't all Kyle Rayners. It wasn't all Super Skrulls. And that's the kind of thing that we like to bring in Wichita. We like to bring stuff that's a little bit interesting, a little bit off the beaten path. So once that gets announced, that's definitely something, if you like to have a good time, it's one of the main things we like to try and strive for in a tournament.
Excellent. Well, Joshua, at this point, I want to say thank you very much for sharing your time with us and sharing your experiences with the tournament with the fans and myself. I look forward to possibly talking to you again on another level, possibly after another Super Q. We'll see.
I'll do my best.
Yep. In the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, I want to just remind you that we are also partners with Carta Magica, and they have a Twitch TV stream. That's twitch.tv/Carta Magica TV. Every so often they do stream games. They'll stream their Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournaments or Heroclix games, and then they'll transfer onto their YouTube page for later archiving. So if you want to get a chance to check that out. Until then, guys, I'll see you guys next week with next week's Champ Chat. And just remember, guys, practice makes your team better.